Hello there students and welcome back to this video series. This is your instructor Dhruvi Bhatt and I would be discussing about the principles of management and along with that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Firstly, talking about principles of management students, principles of management are basically divided into two major heads. We would be having scientific principles given by Frederick W. Taylor or Frederick Winslow Taylor, and we would be having administrative principles given by Henry Fayol. Both these principles are aimed towards different things, and more prevalent today are administrative principles. You will see why so in just short amount of time. Let us first discuss about scientific principles of management given by Frederick W. Taylor, Frederick Winslow Taylor. He, just like you and me, was an engineer and he designed this principle in a railworks company. He identified that each and every person worked equally in that railworks company. They were carrying coal for the railways. Each and every person, each and every worker was not lazy, but still efficiency of all the workers was different. Why so? He found the reason for that and designed these principles to make sure that efficiency of workers increases. He identified that what causes lead to poor performance of the workers. He wanted to ensure that each and everyone get the same amount of output. He believed that there is always one best way or one best method of doing any work. He'll identify that method and he will teach that method to each and every person to make sure that the output produced by each and every person would be same. Let us see what are different principles given by him. The first principle is use science and not rule of thumb. Rule of thumb means something which is followed from a very huge time and it is passed on from generation to generation. He told that do not do any work in a particular way just because your adults or someone else is saying so. He told that to do some work, identify a scientific method or scientifically best method of doing that work. Instead of following rule of thumb, instead of copying someone else, make sure that you identify the best method of doing the work and do that work. He was of the opinion that if work can be done scientifically, then it will be done more effectively. The second principle talks about harmony and not discord. He told that both the management and the workers are interdependent on each other. Management will earn profits only if workers will work, and workers will get their wages only if management gains their profit. Both are interdependent on each other. So he told that both must think about each other and work in harmony instead of constantly fighting. Each and every person fights with the higher management because they do not understand their rules, regulations, their policies. So he told that policies should be laid out scientifically so that no one else would argue upon that particular policy and each and every person would work in harmony. A good work environment, a peaceful work environment, a harmonious work environment would lead to efficient production. The third principle of scientific management tells that there should be cooperation and not individualism. A single person cannot achieve all the goals alone. If there is a proper teamwork with a proper direction, then goals can be achieved properly, and that is why he was supporting more of a teamwork rather than individualism. Lastly, he told that there must be scientific selection and development of workers. The person who is suitable for the job must be given that particular job. They must be trained in a scientific manner. They must be recruited in a scientific manner. analyze a person before giving him a particular work. Identify the best person to do a particular work, and he will do that work with pleasure, and he will do that work in the minimum possible time. This was his opinion. He told that a recruitment or selection of a person must be done scientifically, and you must not end your relationship with the worker there. A manager must constantly strive towards development of workers. He must make sure that the worker will become the best and the most efficient one. These are the 4 principles of scientific management. To achieve these 4 principles, he gave us different techniques of scientific management. These different techniques make sure that the 4 principles are appropriately satisfied. The first technique of scientific management is functional foremanship. The second technique is standardization and simplification of work. The third technique is work study, where we would be talking about method study, motion study. Motion study was developed further. The works of F.W. Taylor were taken further in motion study by Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. We will talk about them also when we would discuss about motion studies. The third study which we would be discussing is time study. Last but not the least, we would be talking about fatigue study. All these studies would make sure that the work is done in the most effective manner. The next technique for scientific management is differential piece-weight system. Let us try and understand each of these techniques in detail, starting firstly with, of course, functional foremanship. He here told that each and every employee must work under 8 different managers or 8 different bosses. Each employee would be working under 8 bosses. The 4 bosses responsible for the planning and the remaining 4 for production. These 8 bosses will take care of different things. They will design different disciplinary actions. They will design the route of work of the workers. Here Frank was of the opinion that if they are given a proper good work environment, and if they are taught the best method in which they will be very less tired, and they can do smart work instead of hard work scientifically, then they will be able to work more efficiently and will give out more results, more outputs. Here functional foremanship means for each and every task there is a boss designed. For each employee there are 8 bosses to whom they would be reporting. They will be taking care of different planning and production functions. What all these bosses will take care of? First is standardization and specialization of work. As I told you, he was of the opinion that there is always one best method of doing any work. He told that that best method must be identified. Identify that best method, standardize the work, standardize the methodology of doing that work. And specialization means give that work, divide the work properly and give that work only to the person who is specialized in doing that particular work. So, he was of the opinion that there must be standardization and specialization of work. What different things should be standardized is given in the work study. The first thing which must be standardized is method or process of doing work. The methodology of doing any particular work must be standardized. Identify that one best method of doing any work. If I just want to produce a simple table, identify the best method for production of a table. Just identify the best method and standardize that method. Along with that, identify the best motion of doing that work. Here students, I would like to explain the motion study in a little bit of detail. Here students, Taylor was of the opinion that much of the motion was wasted by the workers. They did not know the best motion of doing any work. which led to tiredness, which led to wastage of motions, which led to wastage of time. And that is why he told that the best motion must be identified and taught to each and every worker, and only this motion must be followed. As I told you before, the motion study was carried forward by Frank and Lillian Gilbreth. They were also working in the Railworks Company in England with Frederick W. Taylor. They both were very much impressed with the works of F.W. Taylor, and they wanted to study more about his works in a bricklaying firm. They went to a bricklaying firm, they observed the motion of different bricklayers. They identified that though each and every worker is working for the same amount of time, some workers are able to build a higher wall than other workers. They needed to find the reason for this. They identified that much of these workers are wasting their motion in laying the bricks, and that is why they are wasting time. They thus started recording the motion of each and every worker. They developed a microchronometer, a first of the type of a camera, to record the movement of each and every worker. They identify the best movements which are effective for bricklaying, and once they did so, they also wrote a book known as Thurblick. It is just the reverse of Gilbreth with T and H transposed. In this book, they gave a pictorial representation of different hand movements, leg movements. Each person would be taught those pictorial representations to make sure that they can remember it easily, and from that they would be given a design of what movements they must follow in the bricklaying firm. Over a period of time, the same practice will followed in all different firms too. Here, the motion was standardized, not only standardized, it was taught to all the employees, and it was made sure that the employees follow one same motion. It would lead to less tiredness and less wastage of motion. The third thing which will be standardized is time. He also indulged in time study. He identified the best amount of time required to do any particular task. He identified the best time and he made sure that each worker is given only that stipulated time to do that particular work. We have our time boss to make sure that the work is completed timely. Moving forward, the last study in work study is fatigue study. He was of the opinion that the more a person gets tired, the less productive he will be. So he designed special rest periods for the workers. He made sure that their movements are as such that they do not get tired easily. Secondly, they are given proper rest periods during the entire day so that they can work effectively. At the end of each 2 to 3 hours, they were given a break of 10 minutes, and these rests would boost their performance during the next extended period of work. He told that the less tired a person is, the more effective a person is. The last technique of scientific management is differential piece wage system. He told that wages of any employee or any worker must be based upon their productivity. Up to certain level of production, wages must be comparatively less. As his efficiency and production or output increases, that worker must be given higher wages. This will motivate the workers for working more. Secondly, they will not demand for an increment because they already know the more they produce, the more they will gain. Their wages must be directly proportional to their work, and it will lead to higher productivity in an organization. But students, how much ever good these principles sound, they sound a little robotic, don't they? Expecting a person to follow a particular time, to follow a particular motion, that was going a little bit overboard, and that is why scientific principles were criticized a lot. The principles which were then introduced were administrative principles of management given by Henry Fayol. He was of the opinion that we need to understand the workers to design a particular structure for the workers. He gave us 14 principles of management. Nowadays, these principles are still into practice in some of the organizations, though not completely, but a part of them still are. What are different administrative principles of management? As I told you, they are 14. So before we discuss them, this is a mnemonic to remember them. You can remember these 14 principles using the mnemonic DAD, UC, USSR, IC, order. Remember this mnemonic, and from each first letter we will be having one principle. But do not write only the mnemonics when you are asked the principles. You need to write the full forms. The first principle of administrative management, starting from a D, is division of work. Here Henry Fayol told that a single person cannot be expertised in each and every work. So work must be divided into smaller part. Find the person who is expertise in that particular work, assign him or her that work, and that work would be completed efficiently. Divide the work into smaller parts, assign that work to a specialized person, and your work is done. He will do it efficiently, automatically. Imagine this, if I would be given all the subjects and I would be told to taught you all the subjects at a time, I might not be as efficient. But if I am given a single subject, then I need to focus on my part of work only, or a single subject only. It would increase my focus and it would improve my efficiency. The second principle is authority and responsibility. Henry Fayol told that both of these go hand in hand. If you are given an authority for any particular work, then you are responsible to complete their work. Authority and responsibility go hand in hand. If you have the power, you need to utilize it responsibly. You need to complete the responsibilities if you are given an authority of a particular department. Moving forward, the next principle is discipline. Each and every worker must follow discipline. You must make sure that all the workers know all the rules, regulations and principles followed by the organizations, and they also follow the same. Discipline is must when it comes to work. Otherwise, without any discipline, no work would be completed properly. It will ensure that there is no wastage of resources, no wastage of time, and each employee does effective work. The fourth principle is unity of command. There is a single boss for each employee. If there are more than one bosses above an employee, then those bosses will fight amongst each other and the employee will get confused and his productivity will decrease. Our principle says that there must be unity of command, single person or single designation above an employee. The next principle talks about subordination of personal interest to general or common interest. Obviously, students, each and everyone goes out to work for their personal interest. I want to earn, and that is why I go out and work. This is my personal interest. But there must be subordination of my interest into the general interest of the organization. I will be able to earn only if the organization earns. So I must do my best for the organization to make profits. You need to subordinate personal interest to common interests. The next principle is equity. Equity is nothing but equality. Irrespective of gender, age, caste and creed, in any organization there must be equality amongst each and every employee. Only then the organization will flourish. Otherwise, there would be constant conflicts amongst the workers about the biasness or prejudices. So that this doesn't occur, equity is must. Next principle is esprit de corps. This is nothing but French for teamwork. If you will work as a team, only then you will take organization towards its goal. All the departments, though they are differentiated, though there is division of work, though there is specialization of work, if all these work in sync and in coordinated manner, only then there would be a final success. This is what the principle means, that teamwork must be given high importance. Next principle talks about unity of direction. Along with unity of command, a single boss, there must be unity of direction too. Employees, employer, entire organization must be having a common goal and must be working towards that common goal. There must be unity of direction. Each employee must be knowing the direction they are working for, and they must work hard to reach that direction. The next principle is scalar chain. Scalar chain says that a chain of command must be followed in communication. Whenever there is communication in the organization, no two people of different departments would directly communicate with each other. They need to follow a chain of command to reach to another department. That is known as scalar chain. Say for example, I am a faculty of computer engineering department, then I cannot directly talk to a faculty of mechanical engineering department. If I have some official work with him or her, then I will need to follow the chain. I will convey the work to my head of department. My head of department will convey the work to director. Director will convey the work to head of department of mechanical engineering, and head of department of mechanical engineering will convey the work to faculty of mechanical engineering. This chain must be followed each time. This is to make sure that no information leaves the department without the knowledge of superiors. So the scalar chain must be followed. The next principle talks about stability of tenure. Here students, any employee must be hired for a particular period of time. This is beneficial both for the employee and the organization. If the employee keeps on changing jobs, then he or she will not be effective in any of the organization. So that is not good for the career of the employee too. Secondly, if the organization keeps on changing employees, a new employee would obviously take time to get adjusted to the system. However standardized any organization is, each and every organization have their own personal touch or have their own personal workings. So to adjust a new person in this organization is also a task. Stability of tenure will make sure that employee is given a specific period of time to adjust in this environment. Also, it gives an organization time to make sure that whether the employee is a good fit or not. An employee must not be hired and fired redundantly. It must be done over a specific period of time only and only if it is highly necessary. The next principle says that each and every employee must be paid fairly, must be remunerated according to the work he or she does. The next principle talks about initiative. If any employee takes some initiative, that initiative must be motivated and taken care of. If employee wants to work in the best of the interest of the organization in some methodology which is different from the methodology of the organization, then his initiative must be considered. Obviously, if it is not beneficial, he might be told to change the plan, or he might be told to take another course of action, but his initiative must not be disregarded. The next principle talks about centralization. Centralization means all the power and authority in few hands, in the hands of top management only. Decentralization means all the employees are given little bit power of decision making. From both of these, which is better, a centralized organization or a decentralized organization? A centralized organization would obviously be more disciplined because everyone will have to hear to their superiors. Decentralized organization, on the other hand, will be more creative because everyone will put forward their ideas and they will work on their own initiative and they would be happy working there. I would say, and Henry Fayol says, that there must be a balance of centralization and decentralization in any organization to make sure that the work is effective. The last principle talks about order. Whatever required is present at correct time at correct place. Man, material, everything is present at right place at the right time. That is order. It must be present, only then your production will be efficient. Moving forward, let us talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This Abraham Maslow gave us the theory of motivation. How a person can be motivated at different life stages. Obviously, if you need that a person works for you, then you must constantly motivate that person to work more and more. How can you do so? It is given by the hierarchy of needs. Each and every person would work to satisfy some of his needs. What are these needs and how can an organization satisfy these needs? The first need for which any person would start working is obviously his physiological needs. Physiological needs are food, water, shelter, the basic necessities of life. By giving an income which can buy the basic necessities of life, you can satisfy the physiological needs of your worker. Students, if the company is able to satisfy all the needs in this pyramid, then it will be able to retain all of his employees for the maximum amount of time. Physiological need, the first need for which a person goes out and work, that is food, water and shelter. Once he is satisfied with food, water and shelter, the second need is the need of safety and security. A person has a home, a person has food. Now he or she thinks about the safety of the home. My belongings stay safe. I stay safe. That is the second requirement. How can company fulfill this requirement? By giving an option of provident fund, an option where a person will be able to maintain his lifestyle even after he doesn't have a job. He can be given different insurance policies. He can be given different mediclaims to make sure that his need of safety and security is fulfilled. The third need is social need, that is the need for friendship, love, belongingness and intimacy. How can a company make sure that the employees, this need is satisfied? Okay, you got me wrong. Companies can provide work-life balance so that an employee gets time to socialize with others and hang out with his friends and family. Mostly students, most of the workers would satisfy only these three needs in their entire lifetime. The next two needs are higher level needs, which will be satisfied amongst only chosen few who are highly skillful. The next need is the need of self-esteem. They or employees have made their social circle. Now they need recognition in this social circle. That recognition is their self-esteem. How can companies give them recognition amongst their social circle? By providing them awards, rewards, by giving out their pictures in office magazines, etc. By awarding them employee of the month ways. There can be different ways in which here the employees, the need for self-esteem will be satisfied. The need for his or her self-respect amongst his social circle. Once his need for self-esteem is satisfied, he will crave for the need of self-actualization. He is now having a reputation in the society, but now he wants to prove something to himself. He wants to be the best in whichever field he or she is. He wants to grow and he wants to become the best. This need can be satisfied by the organization by giving him different difficult opportunities, by giving him work which he is not usually used to, by giving him higher responsibilities, by giving him higher authority. Then his need of self-actualization can be satisfied. To keep the person motivated from time and again, companies must follow this pyramid or hierarchy of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay students, ending on that note, this is Dhruvi Bhatt signing off. Until next time, bye-bye.